Your partner asks how much something cost, and your body reacts before your mind does. The question wasn't aggressive, but something in you still tightens immediately. Your tone changes slightly. You start explaining the decision before they even say anything else. Part of you suddenly feels judged, exposed, or irresponsible, even though the conversation barely started. The moment is small, but the reaction isn't. It feels like the question touched something older than the relationship itself. That is the shift. The conversation is happening in the present, but your system is reacting to something deeper. The amount is not the real trigger. The feeling behind it is. A simple question suddenly feels loaded. Not because your partner created pressure, but because your brain already associates money with evaluation. The moment money enters the conversation, your system starts preparing for what usually follows. Defending yourself, explaining yourself, justifying the decision, or trying to avoid tension before it happens. That response appears fast because your body treats money conversations like emotional situations, not practical ones. It is not reacting to the number, it is reacting to what the number might mean about you. Responsible or irresponsible, safe or risky, controlled or careless. So even a calm conversation can create pressure if your system already expects judgment underneath it. And once that pressure appears, the interaction changes. Your tone changes, your posture changes, and the conversation stops feeling neutral, even when it started that way. That reaction usually starts long before the relationship does. It begins in environments where money carried emotional weight, even when nobody explained it directly. You noticed when money changed the mood in the room, when stress entered conversations, or when small financial decisions created tension between people. Over time, your brain stopped seeing money as only practical. It started seeing it as emotional and relational. Money became connected to approval, criticism, responsibility, and pressure. You learned that financial decisions could affect how people responded to each other. A purchase could create frustration. A mistake could create blame. A lack of money could change the emotional atmosphere of the entire house. You did not need clear lessons to absorb this. You only needed repetition. Eventually, your brain started linking money with personal evaluation, not just what you spent, but what your spending said about you. Careful or careless, responsible or irresponsible, stable or unstable. Once that association forms, it stays active. So later, when someone asks a simple question about money, your system does not hear only the question, it also hears the emotional meaning attached to it over time. That is why the reaction can feel bigger than the conversation itself. Your brain is not only responding to the current interaction, it is responding to years of emotional association built around what money conversations usually led to before. Your system did not build that reaction to create conflict. It built it to stay ahead of it. When money conversations repeatedly led to tension, disappointment, or emotional shifts, your brain adapted by scanning early for signs that it might happen again. It learned to prepare before the conversation fully developed. That is why the reaction appears so fast. Your body changes before the logic does. You feel pressure before you fully understand why. The moment money enters the conversation, your system starts predicting outcomes based on older patterns. It looks for tone changes, pauses, or subtle signals that something could become emotionally charged. And because those reactions once protected you from being caught off guard, your system keeps using them. The problem is that it no longer separates past situations from present ones very well. A calm question can activate the same response as a tense conversation from years earlier if the emotional signal feels familiar enough. That is why the intensity often feels out of proportion to the moment itself. Your nervous system is not reacting only to what is happening, it is reacting to what it believes could follow: defensiveness, disappointment, criticism, or emotional distance. Stability inside the relationship does not automatically remove this. In some cases, it makes the reaction more confusing because the current relationship may actually feel safe while your system still prepares for pressure anyway. So now you end up reacting to emotional predictions that the other person may not even be creating. At some point, this stops feeling like a reaction and starts becoming part of your role in the relationship. You begin managing how you appear around money, not just how you use it. You become more careful with explanations, more aware of how decisions might be interpreted, and more sensitive to anything that could sound irresponsible. Over time, that creates tension between two versions of yourself. One version wants to feel relaxed, open, and equal inside the relationship. The other version stays alert, trying to avoid criticism, pressure, or disappointment before it happens. That split changes how you respond during even small conversations. Instead of only talking about the decision itself, part of you is also protecting your identity inside the relationship. You are trying to protect how you are seen: responsible, stable, reliable. And because of that, normal questions can feel personal very quickly. The moment stops being only about money and starts feeling like an evaluation of your judgment. That is why the reaction feels emotional even when the conversation is calm. Your nervous system is not only reacting to the present interaction, it is reacting to what the interaction could mean about your place in the relationship. Over time, this creates exhaustion. You begin monitoring yourself during conversations that should feel easy. You explain more than necessary, defend things before you are accused, or pull back emotionally to avoid feeling exposed. The relationship may not be demanding that from you, but your system still acts like it is safer to prepare anyway. The pattern follows a sequence that becomes automatic over time. A money-related question appears, even something small or neutral. Your system immediately scans for emotional meaning underneath it. Before the other person fully finishes speaking, your brain starts predicting where the conversation could go. If it senses even a small possibility of criticism, disappointment, or judgment, tension activates. That tension changes your behavior. Your tone becomes sharper, more defensive, or overly explanatory. You begin managing the emotional risk before there is actual conflict. The important part is that this often happens before the other person has even formed an opinion. Your system is reacting to the possibility, not the reality. Then the interaction shifts. The other person notices the defensiveness, confusion, or emotional pullback, even if they did not intend to create pressure in the first place. Now the conversation actually becomes tense. That tension then reinforces the original prediction. Your brain reads it as proof that money conversations are emotionally dangerous, so the same response becomes even stronger next time. That is the loop. Anticipation creates tension. Tension changes behavior. Behavior changes the interaction. The interaction then confirms the anticipation. Over time, the cycle becomes automatic enough that even calm conversations can activate it. Not because the relationship itself is unsafe, but because your system learned long ago that money conversations often carried emotional consequences underneath them. Over time, the pattern starts changing more than just conversations. It changes what feels emotionally safe inside the relationship. You begin avoiding situations where money might become visible, questioned, or discussed too deeply. Some people stop sharing details. Others over-explain everything before being asked. Some become overly independent financially because depending on someone else feels emotionally risky. Others avoid bringing up concerns at all because they want to prevent tension before it starts. The pattern narrows the relationship, slowly, not through one large conflict, but through repeated emotional adjustments around money. Conversations become more managed, reactions become more guarded, and because your system is focused on preventing emotional exposure, it becomes harder to stay fully relaxed during financial discussions, even healthy ones. Over time, this can create distance without either person fully understanding why. One person feels watched, judged, or emotionally pressured. The other feels confused by reactions that seem bigger than the conversation itself. The important part is that neither side may actually be trying to create harm. The tension is being shaped by emotional patterns that were already active before the relationship even started. But once those patterns enter the relationship, they begin shaping how safe openness actually feels. And the more that safety decreases, the more both people start adjusting themselves around the tension instead of speaking freely through it. So now the relationship is carrying emotional reactions that were built somewhere else. A simple question about money no longer stays simple because your system keeps attaching older meaning to it before the conversation fully begins. The relationship may be stable, supportive, and calm, but your reactions are still being filtered through patterns that were built under completely different conditions. That means some of the tension you feel today is not being created by the relationship itself. It is being carried into the relationship by a system that still expects money to change how people see you, respond to you, or emotionally pull away from you. And as long as that expectation stays active, even calm conversations can keep feeling heavier than they actually are.